Hi, welcome to my channel Cloud with Girish. In my previous video, I explained how to create a CI/CD pipeline to build and deploy a simple Lambda function integrated with API Gateway using AWS SAM and GitHub. Then in the part 2 of the video, I also explained how to replace broad permissions such as full access to services like S3, CloudFormation, Lambda and API Gateway with a custom fine-grained IAM policy that only grant the permissions required by this pipeline per the principle of least privileges that grant only the specific permission required. In this video, I will focus on adding a manual approval stage to the pipeline so that while code will be built by the pipeline based on the Git repo code push, it will not be deployed until manual approval action is completed. Approvers will be notified via email using SNS service, and once they provide approval, then pipeline will move to the deploy stage. Adding this manual approval step in the pipeline ensures better governance and provides a chance for the review before the changes are deployed automatically in the environment. Before diving in, let's review the architecture diagram to understand how these components interact. Let's look at the architecture. So in the first part of this architecture design diagram, we have a flow indicating that there is a user that's invoking an API. That API is hosted in API Gateway. It's a secure API. It's using the API key and usage plan, and then it's invoking a Lambda function. Lambda function is using integrated CloudWatch log, and this entire flow is built using AWS SAM, which is serverless application model, using the infrastructure as code approach. Now, we want to have a Git repo here, and this Git repo is integrated with the code build, which is another service, and S3 bucket for the artifact, and code pipeline is orchestrating the flow where anytime a code change is committed to the Git repo, it will actually trigger the code pipeline and it will update the Lambda function, resulting in the API to return a more up-to-date response depending on the code changes. Let's look at the prerequisites. Familiarity with the AWS Management Console, basic understanding of AWS CLI, AWS SAM, Lambda, API Gateway, and some basic understanding of CI/CD pipeline and GitHub. And most importantly, make sure you have watched my previous videos on the CI/CD topic. I won't repeat the content here, but understanding it is essential for following along with the manual approval action in this video. Let's get started. We're going to look at a quick review of CI/CD pipeline from prior video. Why use a manual approval stage? We'll look at the manual approval stage. I'll configure an SNS topic. This is needed if you don't already have an SNS topic, and then do an email subscription. This email will be then used to notify for the manual approval stage. We'll push a code change to Git repo, and then we'll monitor the code pipeline, and we'll review the manual approval stage again, and we'll look at the subscribed email for the notification. Once we approve the step, we'll monitor the code pipeline again, because that pipeline after the approval should proceed to the next stage. We can look at the S3 bucket. That's where the code artifacts are stored, and then we'll can validate the Lambda function for the updated message. We are using CloudWatch for the log, so we can look at it there as well, and then at the end cleaning up the resources like deleting the pipeline and related resource IAM role. That's just so you don't incur the ongoing cloud cost. So with that, let's look at why use a manual approval stage. Using a manual approval stage for CI/CD pipeline offers several advantages for enterprises. It provides important control and visibility before code changes are promoted to higher environment. Some of the benefits are listed below. have a code SME review before code is promoted to the higher environment like UAT and prod. By having a manual approval stage, you can introduce a pause that let developer, tester, technical managers, or product business to review and approve the changes before they go live. Another advantage is reduce risk of deploying unintended code. Manual approval ensures that unintended code changes not get promoted automatically, causing unexpected functions for the software or broken software. Yet another advantage is adherence with organization compliance and regulator policy. Most enterprises require compliance requirement to document the software changes and approval process. A manual stage ensures that this audit trail is maintained and compliance requirements are met. There are many other advantages like improving the cross-team collaboration, like manual approval stage encourages improved team collaboration as other team SME like QA product or other business units can review and approve the changes. Support for release and change management process. So adding a manual approval stage align well with the ITIL or other structured change management processes where approvals and documentations are required prior to the change implementation. Let's create SNS topic and add email subscription for notification. So if you don't already have a SNS topic, create a standard SNS topic. This topic will be used to send email notification. So to create the SNS, simply log into your console and look for SNS service and click on create a standard topic. Provide the topic a name and continue. Once you have the SNS topic, you can add an email subscription to this, and this email will receive notification from the manual approval stage. So here in this example, I have my topic ARN and I'm using the protocol of email and providing my email address here as the subscription. Now, once subscribed successfully, you should receive an email notification confirming the subscription. So here is a screenshot of the email that I received once I subscribed to this SNS ARN topic ARN. Now that I have the SNS and email all set up, let's look at the manual approval stage. So here is an example of adding a manual approval stage and action so that code updates are not automatically promoted when code pipeline is triggered. So you will need to add a stage and then click on action group and add an action as below. So here I'm saying, hey, here is my approval, manual approval stage, and then here is my action, and the action is manual approval, and then I'm saying that here is the SNS topic, right? So this is basically where I will receive the notification. Again, as a reminder, I'm adding this stage to an already set up pipeline from the previous video. So if you have not watched the part 1 and part 2, I will highly recommend that you go back and watch those 2 videos so that you have a full context of adding this stage to an established CI/CD pipeline. So here, as you can see that there is a manual approval stage has been added between the source and the build. So here is my manual approval stage. So now what will happen that once a code is promoted to the Git repo, it's not going to automatically trigger the build and deploy activity because now it's going to look for a manual approval until someone approve this action. It's not going to promote the build and deploy stage. So that's the whole reason that we are adding the manual approval stage and action here. So let's validate it, right? So we'll push a code change to the Git repo. So let's make a change to the Lambda function and commit the updated code to the Git repo. Once the changes are pushed, this will automatically trigger the AWS code pipeline. And after the pipeline start, we will review the build and deployment stage to confirm that updated function is successfully redeployed. So here, once I confirm, then I'll see that, hey, my source actions are completed. So it was triggered, the pipeline was triggered, but then it paused here waiting for the manual approval. So it has not proceeded to the build stage because now it's waiting for the manual approval action here. Now, remember that we have configured this manual approval to send an email notification. So this stage has triggered a manual approval email notification. And in my email, I can see that it's saying that this action is waiting on my approval. So I have two options. I can either approve or I can reject. And it's also giving me a deadline that this request will expire. So if I approve here, then the pipeline will proceed to the next stage. And if I reject it, then it's not gonna promote the build and deploy, right? So that's my one option. The second option, of course, is that from the console, from the approval stage itself, I can go here and basically click on approval or reject right there, right? So that's my second option. I can do it via email or I can do it from the console itself. But either way, once I approve it, then it will proceed to the next stage. So here, if you look at, once you approve this stage, the code pipeline is proceeding. So this action is completed, this check mark in green showing that action is completed. And now I am in like build, which is progressing. And then since it's progressing, soon you will see that all actions are completed. And then you see that this build is also completed. So at this point, I can validate my updated Lambda function. So let's do that. My Lambda function is integrated with API. Again, this was set up in the part 1 and part 2 of this workshop. So please make sure you watch it again so that you have the context. So now let's look at, right? So I'm using the Pushman to validate this API endpoint. And here is like, I'm saying, hey, let's invoke the API, which is actually in turn invoking the Lambda function. So once I do that, I'm seeing the updated message here, which I pushed in my Git repo. So original message was hello world from Lambda. The updated one is hello world from Girish. So now you are seeing the updated message here. I can look at the S3 bucket for code artifact because that's where all the build artifacts are being stored based on the configuration. Also, there is a CloudWatch log. This is integrated with the Lambda function. So anything that Lambda function is doing with my logging statements and all, I should see that in the CloudWatch log. So cleaning up resources, once you have completed this exercise, make sure to delete all the resources created to avoid unnecessary charges that could impact your overall cloud cost and budget. So in particular, remember to delete the following: delete the code pipeline, delete the code build project, delete any S3 bucket used for artifact, the Lambda function, API gateway, the log group, and so on, and also any role that you have created, right? If they are not used by other services. So in this workshop, I demonstrated how to enhance a Lambda CI/CD pipeline built with AWS SAM and GitHub by adding a manual approval stage with email notification, ensuring control and monitor deployments. Adding a manual approval step with email notification enhances security and governance in your CI/CD pipeline by ensuring critical deployment receive explicit review before execution. I hope you found this tutorial both helpful and informative. I'm constantly working on new content covering various AWS topics, so please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Cloud with Girish channel. Your support helps me continue creating valuable AWS tutorials and workshops. Stay tuned for more exciting content. Thank you.